Have you ever noticed your best ideas rarely come when you're forcing them? Not when you're staring at the screen, not when you're panicking, not when you're obsessing over the outcome. They come later, in the shower, on a walk, during prayer, driving, after you finally let go. World class performers understand something most people don't. The harder you force creativity, clarity, or performance, the more it slips away. Today, I want to read a passage from 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class by Steve Seibold. It's one of my favorite books and connected to neuroscience, psychology, gratitude, prayer, and the flow state. Because mystics, athletes, entrepreneurs, psychologists, and neuroscientists may all be describing the same phenomenon using different language. The title is called The World Class Connects to the Source Through Gratitude. The world class is famous for using nonlinear thinking as a primary problem-solving strategy. And nowhere is this more apparent than when it comes to heightening their creativity. While amateurs become increasingly stressed during problem solving, the great ones become more relaxed to enhance their creative ability. Champions know the ultimate creative force is located somewhere beyond our everyday consciousness, and they must tap this source to generate their best ideas. The secular sometimes refer to this source as the unconscious mind. The spiritual often call it God. Whatever label their belief warrants, few deny the power of the source. Whatever its point of origin, champions know the fastest way to connect to the source is through gratitude. Thoughts and feelings of gratitude seem to elevate the performer's consciousness to a higher plane than is accessible through any other means. Professional writers call it being connected. Athletes call it being in the zone. Psychologists refer to it as a state of flow. Now, no matter what name you assign it, the experience is the same. It's a process that begins by letting go and mentally detaching from the end result or outcome of any task. The focus is on being as opposed to doing. While both amateurs and pros experience the phenomenon from time to time, the great ones are able to access it much more often because they are aware of the triggers that create a mental climate conducive to this state of mind. Gratitude is the mindset of choice when they need to awaken the giant and tap their genius. Powerful, right? Seibold argues the world-class performers often become calmer under pressure instead of more stress. So this is what that idea actually means. But why? Because stress narrows perception. Being calm broadens it, kind of calms our brains down. It's by the power of meditation. And broad attention is where creativity, intuition, and insight tend to emerge. Different groups describe this state differently. He already mentioned it. The zone, flow, surrender or a connection to God, intuition, entrepreneurs call it. Neuroscientists study this altered cognitive state. It's a different language, it's the same experience. Now let's get into the psychology and the neuroscience a little bit about this. It's not magic and it's not vague self-help. This is what I really like about this. And it's important to frame this the right way. So some older frameworks from some previous scientists, Freud and Jung, are useful as mental models. So it's not literal biology, but this is how they explained it so we can understand what they're talking about. Jung talked about the collective unconscious. Modern neuroscience uses different language. They call it default mode network, non-conscious cognition, implicit memory, and pattern recognition happening below conscious awareness. So we're seeing kind of connections that we don't even know we're seeing, right? The importance isn't the terminology. The important thing is the observable result. People often access better ideas when they stop over controlling the process. So think of it, think about investors, athletes, or creators. When they tighten emotionally, performance drops, right? The athlete, they're trying to get, the game is in the fourth quarter. I'm a big basketball fan. Right now we're in the playoffs. Games in the fourth quarter. The games in the fourth quarter is when it gets serious. Pressure's on, the game's tied. If the athlete goes too hard, if they push too much, they may shoot the ball, can't even make a layup, they can't even dunk it. But if they stay in flow, they can't control exactly every shot going in, but they give themselves a better opportunity for those shots to improve their performance. If you're a creator and you need to play an instrument at an event, I could imagine the same thing. Or even a writer, how to get ideas. Oh man, I can't think of ideas. I can't think of right. Why don't you just enjoy writing and relax instead of working so hard for the ideas and then let the ideas come? An investor, I'm an investor. I look for investment opportunities, look for solutions sometimes in negotiations. And sometimes you kind of get to a wall and you're like, what are we going to do here? Happened to me before in a negotiation. I don't know what to do. I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's go to lunch. We kind of were in a mediation situation. Let's go to lunch. Came back from lunch and we actually made a deal happen. Everybody was able to calm down, relax. How can we make this work? I said, man, this is the best time, the most important time we're going to be together. Might as well try to take advantage of it. So let's take a break. We'll come back and give it another shot. So when we relax into trained competence, our performance improves. That's not weakness, that's cognitive efficiency. So it's using our brains the right way. Now let's talk about gratitude and how that impacts it. So let's reframe gratitude. Most people think gratitude is just a feel-good exercise. Oh, I'm thankful. But psychologically, something else is happening. Gratitude, it changes how our brain works in the moment. It lowers our stress intensity, so it kind of calms us down, reduces our stress. It reduces threat fixation, so we stop thinking about all the bad things that can happen, but instead it broadens our attention to everything else other than just the bad, right? It also broadens attention to the possibilities of the good. It makes you maybe more, I call myself a realistic optimist, so you can see everything, the bad and the good. And it gives us broader attention. It's strongly connected to creative thinking. So here's the science. Research from Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough at UC Davis found that people practicing gratitude consistently showed more optimism, made more progress toward goals, and experienced fewer emotional states. Now, Martin Seligman, he actually said we should have an exercise of gratitude where we practice 3 good things. Now, what is it? And this 3 good thing, it actually produced measurable improvements in happiness months later. The 3 good things, you write down what you're thankful for at night, but not only do you write down or 3 good things that happen that day, but you also write why they happen afterward. And the power is not only in the what happened, but which is important for reflection, but in the why it happened, because it gives us agency or lets us know that we have control over the outcomes of our day. Example, today I hired a maintenance person. He has been working hard. He has been doing good work, and we have an apartment rented today. So what happened? Well, a good thing is that an apartment was rented. Why did it happen? Because the maintenance person got it ready, and because I went ahead and put an ad on Indeed to hire a maintenance person. And I did the interview and I did the reference check and I did all that. So that was the great thing that happened and why it happened. And part of it also is my wife, who did the marketing to get marketing on Zillow to find people that could rent. And she was following up with people too. So that's another good thing on why it happened. So it gives her agency, gives me agency. So here's a key insight. Gratitude trains the brain to stop scanning only for threats. And when the brain exits this survival mode that we really kind of grew up with, this is part of our evolution, right? We used to walk around in tribes, surviving. We were kind of afraid of that lion that would come around and maybe eat us or our family, right? Now, instead of that, we're focused on not looking at threats, but in higher order thinking, which becomes easier. This matters in a lot of the things that we do in a modern economy. We're talking about entrepreneurship, investing, leadership, creativity, relationships, and difficult conversations. So all of this will help with all of that. Now, Seibold's exercise, he talked about writing down 10 things you're grateful for. I really like writing down a few things you're grateful for every morning and kind of seeing your emotional state. You can do the 10 things if you have the time to practice that. And that definitely gives you a brightness at the beginning of the day on how to start the day and something to look forward to. Helps with your attitude, helps with a lot of importance. So try that. But I really like Martin Seligman's 3 good things at the end of the day. That's science-based. A lot of good results came out of that, and you can look those up. Now, Seligman's up every night, write down 3 good things that happened. Why did this happen? And because it trains your brain to recognize agency, that you have control instead of being helpless. And this actually goes into something that is called the locus of control. Psychologist Julian Rotter described 2 orientations. So 2 things. We have an external and an internal locus of control. We focus on one. Everyone does. They either have an external or they have an internal. External means life happens to me. I have no control on what happens in my life. And it's really a belief system. I got into an argument outside with, let's say, if you're driving and someone gave you road rage, oh man, that person happened to me. Well, if you have an external locus of control, they're angry, they're upset, they're in a rush. They should have never going so fast. I pulled out, but they should have been going so fast. And internal control says my actions influence outcomes. So I say, man, I should have never pulled out in front of them so quickly. That's what caused their road rage. If I wouldn't have not been rushing this morning, I wouldn't have had to pull out. So I could say I could have woken up earlier. So it's saying you are responsible for your outcomes. And there's actually different data on why an internal locus of control is better. People with a stronger internal locus tendencies generally recover faster, perform better under pressure, make decisions more confidently, and tolerate uncertainty better. And we're in an uncertain time, right? With all this AI stuff, economy, inflation, wars, right? Every day is new, right? So it's uncertain. Now, if you have an internal locus of control, you can handle this better. The gratitude practice is not passive, it's cognitive training. So you're training your brain to have an internal locus of control, because we both have both, but everyone has one side that dominates over the other. Now let's change over to something called being versus doing. And the being versus doing, this is the core paradox here. This may be the most important part of this entire conversation. So stay with me if you're still with me. There are 2 very different mental states. There's the doing mode, which is monitoring, judging, overanalyzing, trying to control performance while performing. Am I doing this right? What if I fail? How am I being perceived by other people? Basically, social media. You're posting something great that happened to you to share, maybe with friends, or you're posting something for your business, and instead of just posting and kind of letting it out there and doing your best, you're like, oh man, what are they thinking about me? When most people they're not worried about you. They have their own problems. Being mode is something completely different, and that is when we're being present. We're focused on absorption, enjoying the moment, focus on being present, and focus on being engaged in the moment. The self temporarily fades into the activity. We stop focusing on ourselves, we focus on the activity itself. Athletes experience it, artists experience it, entrepreneurs and parents experience it when they're playing with their kids. Entrepreneur in the middle of the deal, artists when they're practicing their art, whether it be writing or their instrument or they're painting, and athletes when they're playing their sport. Now, there's also science behind this. There's a researcher, Arne Dietrich, proposed the idea of transient hypofrontality. Fancy words. It just says during flow states, parts of our prefrontal cortex, this is the front part of our brain that benefits a lot from meditation, temporarily has reduced activity. So in simple terms, the conscious mind stops interfering with trained competence. So we stop thinking so much and we just kind of flow in the moment like a dance. So we basically catch the rhythm, is what I would call it. You cannot force flow though. The harder you chase it, the more you activate self-conscious monitoring, which pushes you back into the doing mode. That doing mode, which is that judging mode, the monitoring mode, the am I doing this right mode. So you can't force it. So what can you actually do? You have to create conditions that make flow more likely. You have to practice gratitude. You have to practice breathing. That's part of the meditation. You have to practice doing things over and over again, repetition. So now you're a master because you've done it so many times. In a high pressure situation, you repeat the conditions that you're going to be in, whether maybe it's test taking, right? You take the test at the same time that test you're going to take it, and you wake up at the same time, you practice, it's the same test pretty much. It's a very difficult test. Maybe you don't have the exact same one, but you prepare and you repeat, right? And you practice over and over. Maybe you're giving a speech and you practice it in front of the mirror so many times. It's like Winston Churchill, he was a great speaker, but he used to practice so much in front of the mirror. Look it up. Other conditions that improve flow are prayer, acceptance, and reduced emotional resistance, letting go. So closing up with that one, surrender and prayer. And this is something that if you're more spiritual, you're going to appreciate this. If you're secular, you may say, prayer. But I want you to stay with me because this is something that's really powerful. There's an important distinction. Most people approach prayer in doing mode, negotiating, controlling, pleading, trying to force the outcomes. Hey, can you fix this problem for me? Man, if you could, only let this investment work out, or only let this relationship work out, or my financial situation, or whatever. But surrender is different. Surrender says, I will act fully, but I release attachment to controlling every outcome. So I'm going to do what I need to do to be successful, or for the relationship, or for the position, or for the business, right? I'm going to prepare and I'm going to do my best and I'm going to work hard, but I'm not going to attach myself to the outcome. I surrender to controlling everything, however comes out, because I cannot control the outcome. I can only control my performance. That shift in the mindset reduces anxiety, reduces stress, and emotional overload. And this clarity tends to emerge afterward. After letting go, we actually get clarity. And it isn't always instant, but consistently enough that millions of people across cultures have observed it. And this is the power of surrender and prayer. So the framing is let go and let God is not passivity. For many people, it becomes one of the most effective psychological frameworks for reducing internal friction and accessing clearer thinking. If you're not a believer in God, think of it as let go and let the universe take care of the rest. But basically saying you are not in control of the whole situation, you can only do so much. And that just is going to give you peace, but at the same time, knowing you did your best for the positive outcome that you wanted. So, I look back at this and I thought of a story, and I've been a real estate investor for about 16 years now. And one thing that I was doing after investing for 5 years in residential single family homes, I transitioned to multifamily real estate, more commercial. That's my share of the story, wife's idea. We were under contract on a 24 unit property, super excited, looking to put this deal together. And man, it was one of the hardest things I could ever do. And at some point, I did everything I could, and I had the right credit. I talked to tons of investors, which most of them said no. 2 of them said yes, partners on the deal. And I had some cash from a property I sold. And finally, I put all these ducks in a row, talked to tons of banks. Most of them said they couldn't do what I needed, the loan type that I needed. At the end of the day, I let go. And I surrendered to the process. I said, you know what, I'm going to put my best foot forward. And if it's not for me, but at least I put my best foot forward and I did everything I could. So I knew whatever happened, I was satisfied with the outcome. And that's what called letting go. So in closing, Steve Seibold is packaging an ancient idea in performance language. Mystics call it surrender. Athletes call it in the zone. Psychologists call it flow. Neuroscientists study altered cognitive states. Different language, same experience. The goal is not to become passive. The goal is to reduce unnecessary internal friction so you can think, create, lead, and perform at a higher level. Sometimes your best move is not forcing harder. Sometimes your best move is to pause, breathe, let go, reconnect, and then act. Now, if you find that helpful, please subscribe to Prosper Without Permission so you don't miss our future videos. And, comment below, where do your best ideas usually show up? If you subscribe, let me know you subscribed, and, maybe I'll respond back in the comment section. Well, thanks for being with us. Take care. Bye-bye.